Are we live?
Most of us.
Okay, you're good.
We're good? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like you to welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting at Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. It is 2:32 p.m. Present today is Councilman Randy Allison, Councilman Vince Polizzi. We also have on board here, we have John Sanders, our city engineer, Skip Mimi, our community planning. We have, I'm trying to read my screen here. Of course, we have Mayor Slaughter up front and center here. We have Justin Snyder, Jason Bolt, Molly Steele, Janice Frank, our city clerk, Kayla Drummond from Recreation, and we have Mark Derry, who is our ADA expert. We have 5 items on our agenda today. We are going to, Mayor, since you have to leave at 3:30, and I think John and Scott Livermore, you're okay switching around the agenda here?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah,
That's fine with me.
Okay, so let's go down to, let's start with this discussion of City Hall, item number 3. I don't know where to start with this first, but I did know we got a lot of information sent from Joe Girardi, so I think I would like to open up the floor to Joe Girardi first. Joe, are you present there? It's very hard to see all you small people there.
yeah. No, I'm here. I believe I'm unmuted. Am I correct?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll start out. Everybody is aware of some of the situations and the problems that have been occurring in City Hall. Back in September, I believe that's when it was, when we basically had a lot of water infiltration from the roof drains not working properly and the roof being in poor condition. This led us to basically saying we had to condemn this building. We had a study done with different types of things such as mold and those kind of things, asbestos. Still waiting on one report for radon for the building. So what we did at that time, we shut the building down on September 20th. And the building was evacuated in September 20th, 2021. What I did was put together a violation notice based on the property maintenance code. And below, what the letter I sent out to everybody was basically saying, these are items that truly need to be addressed, fixed, remodeled, or changed prior to us going back in and occupying City Hall. And it addresses issues from your roof drains, your downspouts, interior and exterior structures. There is some structural issues on the one entrance going into the codes department. There was an additional water leak that happened because a coil broke, which happened above the second floor down through the hallways into the police department and into our department down below, which has created more moisture and dampness problems. Also protective treatments and some electrical issues, which basically we have to have an electric inspector go in there with those areas that were damaged by the water. And also all upgrades to the Americans with Disability Act, which I believe Mark can probably talk to a lot better than I can on those issues. But since everybody's out of this building, I can't really, as a code administrator, allow everybody to go back into this building until these items are addressed. And that's why I sent this letter out, very similar to the one I sent out before, but I just wanted to give everybody an update on where we're at and what we're doing at this point. So these are the things that are problems that we have with the building. More than happy to address them. I know Adam's here, he can help out too also, and John Sanders. So that's where I'll end it and be more than happy to take on any questions.
The one question that I have, Joe, is when the air quality report came through, it did not state that there was that much of a problem with mold. And that's when everybody was evacuated from City Hall.
Correct. It was basically, there was mold issues, but according to the report, the levels weren't in excess of what's allowable. But I also have to look caution. We have to weigh on the side of caution concerning people do go into this building in and out. We do have other people who come in and out of this building who are, let's say, not as healthy as others. They come in with wheelchairs, they'll come in with oxygen and so forth. So it was in the best interest of us in City Hall to have everybody out of the building so we can remediate it properly and take care of the damage that was done in this building.
Okay.
But the answer to the question, yes, the levels were lower than anticipated. But again, it was at the point where this building the can's been kicked down the road for so long. I eventually decided, and I took it upon myself and the mayor to turn around and some of the individuals here at the office and say, okay, now we got to do something with this building now. And since everybody's out of this building, it'd be the best time to fix it and bring it into compliance so that whether we stay there or somebody else does, at least the building's in compliance with the code.
Okay, we did have the ad hoc meeting.
Correct.
And having the ad hoc committee meeting, and it was voted on that we were going to stay in City Hall when the cost factors came into effect.
That's
and as far as that went, it has not progressed any further. Nothing has been done in City Hall at all. Mark, I'm going to turn this over to you. What are your what have you come up with?
Okay, so at the city's request, you guys hired me to do an ADA survey on several city buildings, including City Hall. In the process of doing that, I provided a report to John Sanders and others on the issues that fell under ADA that I saw and noted as part of my survey. A lot of times barriers can be remediated and issues can be solved by doing a little bit of work. Unfortunately, there's a lot of work to do on this building. Things have not been addressed over the years, and the restrooms are way out of not only compliance, but once you touch them, it's going to trigger more issues that we're going to have to look at under plumbing. You're never going to match finishes on these restrooms. There's so much work to do within them that we may be addressing bearing walls and structural issues as well on the restrooms. But beyond that, there's several issues within that building. They're going to be pretty costly to address, and they're included in my report. One's the elevator, which is undersized, so it's non-compliant for not only non-compliant for size, but as I was looking at the elevator, there's several notes I made on the operation of the elevator, which I don't believe is up to code. And frankly, the elevator is just kind of scary. It needs to be updated, and that's going to be huge. But other issues include signage would have to be addressed throughout the building because it's program access we're talking about under ADA. We're using signs within the building that aren't accessible for raised letters and Braille. So that would have to be addressed. That's kind of going to have to be addressed wherever we have our programs and services. So that wasn't at the top of my list as much as the restrooms, the elevator. The fire alarm system is antiquated. It has no strobes within the building. So that's going to be big to the folks with hearing related disabilities. When we're looking at having programs and services in the building, they're going to be requiring under ADA to update the alarm system, and it would be a whole panel alarm set up to go into that building. And so you're talking a huge cost. John and Joe already did a pass through the building and made a note of all the doors, which all require the hardware to be replaced. And when we go to start making adjustments to the building to provide remediation for the accessibility issues, again, we're going to be triggering stuff that's going to be required for us to do because we're touching things. And so the short of this is you're looking at a tremendous amount of expense here, and I don't cost things as part of doing this job. You guys have numbers for a lot of this stuff where the research has already been done, and I'm here to tell you those numbers, if anything, they're low. So we need to take a hard look at remaining in City Hall is the short of it, or repurposing that building, and what our options are, would be my best advice. We can put together a punch list and go to fixing this building. That I'm a buildings guy. From my standpoint, you can fix anything if you have enough money. And with the stone construction and the date of the building, to have modern century programs and services in there that are accessible is going to be tough to do. So I apologize for the bad news, but you need to know from an ADA perspective, as well as from 30 years of construction and ADA experience, I've rebuilt hospitals and remediated features on buildings. I've also knocked down a couple of buildings. Not that I'm suggesting that here, but repurposing may be something you look at or whatever, but look at your options, in my opinion.
Mark, you said that you did surveys of other city buildings. Did that include Trade and Transit 1 and 2?
Yes, it did.
Okay,
And
and how did those reports come out?
They came out very well compared to City Hall. There's some tweaks we need to make, some corrections, but really overall it's minor in the newer facilities that we're in. And so I was refreshed when I saw that. The move into the buildings that you've made is a good one, because those buildings are in pretty good shape. We have to address signage and a few tweaks, but that's about it. The RBT was good. There was a couple of little things that they did wrong in new construction that they can go back and fix, and they'll be perfect under new construction requirements. But even under existing structure requirements, we still have program access to deal with. So it's not like a public accommodation that's privately owned. We have to make sure that our programs and services are accessible to everyone. So it triggers us having to do quite a lot of work to make sure that happens in our existing structures. But the newer buildings, I'm really optimistic about.
Okay.
Honey, just so you know, at the time those buildings were constructed that Mark is talking about, other than City Hall, they all did have an ADA inspector go through and a certification. Of course, over years and times, those requirements change and some things get missed. But for the most part, those three buildings, like Mark's saying, I believe are in very good shape as far as ADA accessibility.
I concur.
Yep.
Okay, John Sanders.
Yeah, sure.
You've been part of this.
Yeah, so Mark, I'll just touch on what Mark was worth mentioning. So Mark did a ADA report, which was comprised of about 31 pages. 15 of the pages were City Hall itself, and 16 of the pages were TT1, TT2, Transportation Museum, and RBT. So half the report was just City Hall itself. On my screen, which most of you have already seen before, I have a cost estimate from Reynolds Construction in 2017. Everything that needs to be done to get the building to where it needs to be. And I can spout off all these numbers, but it totals $5.3 million. You escalate that to today's costs from by the U.S. Department of Labor escalation rate, and you're at $6 million almost on the dot for HVAC, roof replacement, ADA ramp, ADA bathroom upgrades, ADA doors and hardware, elevator upgrades, fire alarm, emergency lighting, sprinkler. All that totals up to current dollar figures of $6 million, not including a single cent for remediation of the water damages that happened in August of 2020 and December 2020. So that's kind of where the building's at right now.
Okay, I'm opening up the floor to Mr. Allison, Mr. Palizzi.
Just before before the council members talk, one other thing that does occur with a building like this, once you go above in the building code book, once you go above a certain cost of the worth of the building, then the whole building needs to be upgraded, which means our sprinkler system in that building also is antiquated. It doesn't meet the requirement. And I believe the numbers are probably going to exceed what over half that building's cost is. So now we're talking a total renovation of the building. So I really can't say yes or no until we get all the numbers around, but it does sound like you're also going to have to upgrade our sprinkler system within that building.
Joe, we've been throwing this around for how many years at this point? of dollar amounts. This is where everybody has just backed off because, there's been so many discrepancies of cost factors.
Right.
One person says this amount, another person says this amount. And, so nobody has gotten any further with anything because of that factor. Randy, I see your hand is raised.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for making clear and concise statements and evaluations. I first want to go back to the issue of when the building was evacuated and that the report came back, there wasn't mold to the level that people could not breathe the air. I mean, I think it was totally correct decision at the time to vacate. I fielded phone calls that day from employees working in the building who were being affected by the odor in the air that was being put off by the moisture, the mold, what have you, whatever was causing it. I agree 100% with Mr. Girardi. You always err on the side of caution, I believe, in those situations. I worked in the natural gas industry for some decades, and the role that I learned in the beginning was, what kind of decision would you make if your family was affected by what's going on, as far as safety is concerned, in doing certain things. So I think that was the call to make at that time. You can't wait till you get the test reports back to evacuate a building that might be dangerous to people's health. So I think that was the right call. But moving ahead, I know that there was an ad hoc committee, and at that time, the decision looked correct to do City Hall. But since no decision was made immediately, obviously the circumstances have changed over the past few years, changed dramatically. And I think we're getting some accurate cost estimates now from what Mr. Sandra just shared. And I'm willing to bet on the side of caution there as well, that it's probably a little bit higher once you start to dig into things. It's just like any house rehabilitation or renewal or renovation. You have an idea what it's going to cost going in, but once you start taking things apart and digging into things, it always, you can probably throw another 25% on there. In any case, where I'm at right now, I'm totally convinced we need to vacate the old City Hall and work around Trade and Transit 1 and 2, whatever else we need. If we were to vacate, or if we were to stay there, we have the issue with the police department. Are we going to try to bring them back into that space? And I think there's issues with that being accessible, and for services for ADA would, I think, might be an astronomical cost down there. There's a safety cost to the public coming through there due to how prisoners are brought in there and processed. I just think there's so many details that years ago were not relevant that now in this day and age they are. And I think the evidence is dramatically weighed on the side of going with Trade and Transit 1 and 2 and keeping the police out of City Hall totally. So I guess I've made my decision, so I'm really not going to have anything more to say about it. Thank you, Bonnie.
Mr. Pelisi.
Thank you, Bonnie. Quite honestly, this is a topic we've been going back and forth on for ever, I think since almost day one, since I started with the city. It's been something that, it seems like every single time that we talk about this, we're presented with new cost estimates, new figures, new timeline projections, new requirements for the building. So, I mean, with everything that's changing, do I have some thoughts on what we need? Yes. I'm not sold one way or the other just yet. I would like to see real, definitive, hard numbers in front of me before I would make my decision. Those are what are going to sway whether or not where I think that we should end up. Do I want to see the city stay in City Hall? Absolutely, I would love to see that. It's a great historic building. I would hate to see it turn into, I would hate that if we would vacate that building, that it would end up being vacant or turned into something else. I would really love to see us there. Now, to Councilman Allison's point, yeah, I think there's some real needs with our police department that, again, we need to talk about, or that we need to figure out. And I just don't feel like I have all the information in front of me just yet. I know there's some other things that we're working on and trying to work with the county to come up with funding, potentially for, a public safety building in the future, all these different options. And I would want to get some real numbers and some real time frames for these possibilities. Moving the police back into City Hall at this time, I don't think that would be the best decision right now, given the position and the situation that we're in. However, I would like to see, I would like to see us move back into the City Hall building ultimately. However, depending on the cost that's going to present itself to us and the impact it's going to have to our taxpayers, again, my outlook on that choice may change at that point in time. I apologize. I can't really give any hard-nosed definitive answer one way or the other. I know what I would like to see and what I want. But again, I don't know if that's necessarily what we need, if that makes any sense.
Mayor Slaughter, do you have anything to add to this?
I would just defer to what Mark Derry, Joe Girardi, and John Sanders, this, when we initially went through with ad hoc, obviously factors have changed. The water damage, primarily has been significant. And so, I don't know how many of council has walked through to see some of the damage. I would definitely recommend that you walk through it just to get a better feel for that. On that side, as far as the hard numbers for Councilman Polizzi, John Sander and Joe Girardi, and can, obviously in consultation with Mark Derry as well, we can get that, we can start to get those hard numbers around for you so you can see that, and I think a major factor that Mr. Derry alluded to was that as we start to, and then Joe Girardi did too, to do some of the work, that's going to trigger some other items that are going to need to be upgraded or renovated. And so, the costs start escalating quickly. I'm not sure at the beginning if we can get necessarily all of the hard numbers. Obviously, we'll get as many as we can. But as Mr. Derry said, for example, as we start to do the bathrooms and you start moving some of those load-bearing walls, and if it's whatever the percentage is in the building code, I don't remember off the top of my head, Mr. Girardi, but the percentage of the building that it's worth, then you have to renovate the entire structure, which then costs again start to escalate quickly. But we absolutely, Mr. Polizzi, Councilman Polizzi, can get some hard numbers around on that front, and we are looking at doing having Mr. Sander and Mr. Winder and Mr. Livermore are working with an engineering firm to get an overview of TT1, TT2, and City Hall, because I know Councilwoman Mealy asked for that as well. So using the existing data that we have and information, and then upgrading some of it to some of the current items and cost figures and estimates, we can present all of that. So, and as Councilman Allison said, I think, through all of this, we can't forget the human factor as well. That even through all of this construction, if the decision is made to go back into City Hall, we're looking at significant construction time and costs. And so we have to take that human element into, our employees as well. But I would, if you have not been in, City Hall has sustained significant damage. I would offer that up to take a look at that. And, the other items we're looking at, the roof, other things, it's an 1893 building. So, but we'll get that information around. We have some of it, as John Sander noted, we have some of that ready to go. We'll get some more hard numbers to you. And we'll continue. And the other item that I know we have to talk about as well is the consent decree. The work plan, the consent decree I'm talking about with our ADA, the federal lawsuit. We have until March to finalize that work plan with regards to City Hall, with regards to the elevator, all of that. The ADA. If we go back, everything we have to do it all. So that was 1 year from March. So we have a lot of this. We'll continue to expedite this and get everything you need to make that final decision.
The statements I'm going to make is, number one, this has been on the administrative's desk for a year now, if not longer. And we really do, we've asked for these numbers over and over and over again. And, the cost factors, yes, it's going to be huge. But there are a lot of other things that you have to take into consideration. Right now, we have a City Hall that is separated in 3 different buildings. If you want to take the police department, 4. We are in buildings that can't even be recognized as saying City Hall. It makes it very difficult for the public to even know where to go when they want to go to 7 different offices. We don't have a place where our city government can say, this is our home. We are renting buildings at this point. And one of the cost factors that we're not taking into consideration is also the rent we're paying in these 2 buildings. We have to, juggle both ways. Where are we going to go? We have a beautiful building that, yes, is falling apart, and yes, things have not been done in the past. But are we going to be renters for the rest of our lives? Are we going to live in buildings that don't signify that this is City Hall? Are we going to have people that come to our city and say, where's our city government, and be proud of where they're practicing the government? These are things that, I think we have to also take into consideration, those logistics. Yes, we have a lot of cost factors here, but I think the administration has got to be, it's on your plate, not city council's plate, to look into this. You are the ones, the administration is the ones that have got to come up with the cost factors, the timeline, and everything else. This is not up to city council to make these decisions. And we've been waiting a long time for this. We did do the ad hoc meeting, the committee meeting, came up with our choices and decisions. Now it's up to the administration to have gone further with this. Yes, we do have the consent decree, which, again, if we're not in City Hall, but it's still a city-owned building, is that part of the consent decree? And if it is part of this consent decree, then what are we going to do? Mark, let me ask you this. If you are the ADA expert, okay? We are not holding meetings or anybody is in City Hall, but it's a city-owned building. Because of the lawsuit that we have, would we still have, and it's a city-owned building, would we still have to do repairs in that building, even though nobody's going in there?
It goes by your programs and services. If you don't have any programs or services, including police, in the building, then there's not a requirement. But as soon as you use it for a program or service, everything kicks in.
Okay,
Once we occupy the building, it must be it must be in compliance. Until that time, it's not occupied, it's not open to the general public. Those items that are required to be fixed don't really need to be fixed at that point, if I'm correct, Mark.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's going to tie back to a C of O too. I mean,
That's correct.
under building code, they're going to trigger a lot of stuff.
Right.
And so we're going to have to look under both.
Yeah.
so if nothing is going on in City Hall, then the consent decree, Mayor, we are following that. We are not holding any meetings in that building at all. So what would be the problem with following through on that?
I guess I don't understand. We are following the consent decree, yes.
Right. We are out of the building. The choices right now are nothing's going to be done in that building until we get the cost factors, and nobody's moving back into that building until things are changed at this point,
Right.
even though we may want to go back in that building.
Right. And just to address one thing, Councilman Pelisi, if I may, real quick, are you okay with that? We are moving as quickly as we can, Councilwoman Katz. We had the consent decrees in March, and then obviously we started to move right away with the ramp that was awarded within a couple months. July, August, that sort of changed things a little bit, obviously, with the infiltration of all of the water and all the decisions we had to make at that point. Then we had Mr. Derry, who was approved to do all of his inspection and services, as well as I always blank on her name, our other ADA consultant as well. So we have, yes. And so we are moving as literally as quickly as we can to get this pushed through with all the requirements. We meet with every other week. And so, it's not like we're not sitting here twiddling our thumbs. We are moving as quickly as we possibly can to adhere to the consent decree and adhere to everything else that needs to happen during this time. So, and with all the factors that are involved in this. So, and historically over the last, 30 years or so, the preventative maintenance and all of that just hasn't been completed for one reason or another, which is why now we're looking at all of this coupled with the consent decree. So, we are moving this forward just as quickly as we can, all things considered. Sorry, Councilman Pelisi. Thank you.
Go ahead, Vince.
No, you're perfectly, Mayor, take as much time as you want. Thank you, Councilwoman Cass. Thank you, Bonnie. So I'm just curious here real quick. The rate in which we're paying for rent in the trade and transit buildings, can anyone tell me, and you have to forgive me as I know these numbers were in front of me once before, I just don't have them up in front of me right now, but we're paying right now market rate price per square foot to rent in those buildings, correct?
Correct.
Can anyone tell me what that rate per foot is?
$11 per square foot.
How many square feet would you say that we're renting?
Oh, I could go look and find out and tell you. I believe it was going to be just under, and Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but it came out just under $150,000 a year.
I believe that's true. I don't have it right in front of me. I know it was less than what we were paying ourselves to rent City Hall, but I could try. I could look it up too. I don't have it in front of me either at the moment.
So all I'm trying to do is figure out exactly what we're paying in rent annually to trade and transit. And like Mr. Sanders said before, just right now we're estimating, what, about $6 million in renovation costs
Yeah,
for
and that
City
doesn't,
Hall, is that right?
that's correct. It doesn't include any of the water damages whatsoever. No digging into walls, no touching of load-bearing walls at all. It's just flat out what we need to get back in the building.
Right, just to get back in the building.
And I'll reiterate what those are if you want. HVAC, roof, ADA ramp, which actually is done, ADA bathrooms, ADA doors and hardware, elevator, fire alarm, emergency lighting, and sprinkler system. And then I have 0 for the interior water mitigation. I have ×2 because it happened twice, but that's $5.9 million. So that's $6 million.
John, the HVAC, does that include getting rid of the air system that is horrible, controlling the valves for the heat and cooling, and switching over to an electronic system?
Give me 1 sec. I'll see if it was on there. I don't know if it went into detail. It was the one from the Reynolds Construction in 2017. I have it right in front of me, actually.
Yeah, I don't believe it did.
No, I don't think it did either.
Yeah. Adam Yoder, is that you?
So all I was really trying to do was get some numbers in front of me so I could figure out approximately the approximate timeline it would take. You know, if say, for example, we were looking at a complete investment into City Hall to get it up to exactly everything fixed and then get it exactly where we need. You know, for an example, if it costs us $9 million to fix everything that we need to fix, and we're paying $150,000 a year at Trade and Transit 1 and 2 to rent the space there, well, then it's going to take us, and that's if we don't, you know, obviously the rent rate is a fixed rent rate. It's going to take us 60 years until we even break even on that investment into City Hall. That's where my mind was going, trying to figure out what the timeline for the return on the investment into City Hall was going to be.
And
Now,
reminder,
it's not going to take.
we did. Sorry, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say we did pay rent for a number of years as well in City Hall that we used the City Hall operating fund that we could have. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Correct. And if I can just add that, you know, Trade and Transit 1, Trade and Transit 2, due to the federal and state interest in those buildings, you know, major repairs or upgrades to the heating and cooling system, we have a very, you know, we have a very good chance on getting grants to cover those costs because of that federal and state interest. It's not like the city of Williamsport has to pay for those upgrades, repairs as they do now. So overall, you're going to save money for the city moving forward.
But Adam, we don't know what's going to happen once River Valley turns into an authority. Take that into consideration.
It's still federal and state interest into those buildings, and you can still lease that space. Every transit agency in the state of Pennsylvania leases the space in their transit centers.
Mr. Allison.
Thank you, Moni. To that point, in the point that Vince was making, Adam Winder, we had talked before about the money that went in to purchase those buildings. At a certain point, the city government would be able to own those buildings, correct?
Correct. You would have to pay back the federal and state interest at this point. It's determined by how many years.
Right.
The federal government determines, I want to say Trade and Transit 2, that one, and don't hold me to this exact number, but I think that one was like 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
Trade and Transit 1, due to the renovations there, would be roughly the same. And like Trade and Transit 2 was around $18 million of federal and state money invested. Trade and Transit 1, the renovations there was just under 12 million.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of federal and state interest invested there that the city would have to pay.
So, in essence, we're kind of paying rent to ourselves in a way. I mean, we're not paying it to an outside entity.
Correct.
So I think,
It's no different than what we were doing at City Hall, where each
Right.
department was paying the City Hall fund rent.
I think,
At this point, the city's just paying the non-transit account for the transportation arm rent.
But the rent we were paying at City Hall, Adam, also was going towards the maintenance of that building, which of course is a joke at this point, but at least there was money in the account, okay?
Correct.
Where paying rent right now is going just rent.
although,
So,
Right, your rent is going to the maintenance of those buildings. And that's strictly what it will be used for.
and actually, Bonnie, it turns out that that wasn't exactly the case at City Hall, because some of that rent money was going towards the bottom line.
yeah, exactly,
It wasn't
exactly.
directed to a line item. But I think, to me, when I try to reason this out, yes, the state and federal government have the majority of the money. They put the money into those buildings, so they do have control in that respect, but they're not really interested, I would not think, in being landlords. As long as they have someone in there that's paying market rate, I think that's the best of both worlds for them. That they put money into it and they're getting paid back at market rate. You can't do any better than that. So I think it's a realistic situation for us to be in. I don't think we'd be threatened in any way. And as to your point, I think we could do a lot with signage to direct people to city government. And I think, the two buildings are close together. So, and it really wouldn't be a lot of the trade and transit too kind of serves a separate purpose, and that city council has it for meetings. Our city clerk is there. It kind of separates that out from the other part of city government. And to me, that's also a good situation, because really on a day-to-day basis, the citizens don't have a lot of contact with City Hall, and those that do would be able to access the clerk when she's on the first floor there. And the people like the treasurer's office and others that have a lot of contact with City Hall, city government, are on the first floor as well. So I think it makes it more accessible.
Well, Randy, the one thing that we hear from the mayor and his administrative assistant is they're working out of the kitchen, which is not a place where our mayor should be.
Right.
That's one of the things that I'll say. Okay. But I would like to open up the floor to Adam Yoder. He was the chair of the ad hoc committee, and I would like to hear some of his statements at this point. Adam?
Forgot to change my background. Oops. History. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, certainly. I'm happy to chime in a little bit. So I've heard a number of, I think, good points that are brought up regarding this. There's certainly the question of rent, what it can be used for, ownership of Trade and Transit 1 and 2, the Transportation Museum where we're at, staying in City Hall or what have you. For me, the answers to all of this and what's been guiding my viewpoint on this issue the entire time comes back to the foundational things that led the ad hoc to making the decision that they did in staying in City Hall. Number one, it was deemed, and there's data to back it up, it was the more fiscally prudent option with the information that we had, compared to either going to a different location or leasing from another entity. Part of the reason for that was because it appeared at the time that we would have a better opportunity to get external funding sources to make repairs to City Hall, whether it's the roof, whether it's the HVAC system, what have you. That played fiscally into the decision. We did not have a place to put the police department. So when we looked at moving to Trade and Transit 1 or 2, we still did not have a place to put the police department. And that has not changed either. I know that they're at the Herdick Transportation Museum. That is temporary. We can't keep them there permanently. That has not changed either. The only solution that we had and probably still have is building a public safety facility, which is, even if you look at it in a regional effort, which we had, is very costly in the grand scheme of things versus compared to staying at City Hall. And then the other component of this that led that decision was the level of discomfort that everybody on the committee, between the administration and council members, had in leasing from another entity. So for example, we explored leasing space from the county at a very advantageous rate, a rate that was more cost effective than what we're paying to RVT right now. And that made everybody uncomfortable for a number of different reasons. The uncertainty of the change in commissioners, if a change in the winds of the political environment would change, how would that impact our long-term operations there, et cetera, the optics of it, and realistically, that hasn't changed either. I know that we're in this debate of, we're renting from ourselves, and I don't know that we have a clear answer on what would happen with the facilities if and when RVT became a regional authority. I would suspect that would be part of the process of going through that to form that, but that needs answered. And that has the opportunity to end up being the same situation that the ad hoc committee was uncomfortable with. So in my mind, none of the three of those have changed, and which leads me to support the decision that the ad hoc committee made, and council accepted that recommendation a year ago, almost a year ago. I think it was March, so 10 months ago. So in my mind, nothing's changed from my perspective. And I think if Bonnie, reading between the lines of some of your comments, and if I'm reading right, I would agree. I think at this point, if there is a different option that is out there, I think the administration needs to go through the process of vetting it, compiling the data to support it, and show us why it is more prudent to do that versus staying in City Hall. Go through that process, bring it forward, and we'll vote on it. Until that happens, I think that I don't see why we're not going through the process of enacting the recommendation of the ad hoc committee, which was doing exactly what it seems like we started to do. We're going through the ADA work initially. Mr. Derry has done a lot of legwork on his end from the consent decree, so that we have the total compilation of what needs to happen there, and we can start to progress there. The other part of the recommendation was to go through a design build RFP process to finalize scope for everything that we knew about at the time, but also, finalize scope for some of the things that we hadn't quite quantified yet. So for example, the water damage that happened this past summer, that was something that was openly discussed in the ad hoc committee. Frankly, that was part of the recommendation, was to look at what would be needed to mitigate some of those issues that had happened before any of us were here. I think this has been an ongoing issue. So, really that happening over the summer Councilman Allison made the comment about, getting out of there temporarily. That was the right move because we didn't know at all. And when we're talking about the work environment for people, we have to err on the side of people. I think Councilman Allison made that comment. Mayor Slaughter made that comment. That was the right decision for sure. But we found out that there was, I believe there was no air quality issue. So there's other things that we need to do to take care of from the building being condemned. But, there's no reason, unless there's something else out there that the administration has found, there's no reason, I don't think, to hold up that. But that's just my perspective. So in essence, if there is something that has been identified by the administration that is more advantageous, I think that the administration needs to go through that process, compile everything that we've been asking for since the temporary move has happened, and bring it forward to us, and we'll vet it through the committee and the council process as a regular piece of legislation, and we'll vote on it if it's the right thing for the city. Until then, I think we're at where we're at, and I don't see why we can't or should not be continuing through with the recommendation that the ad hoc committee made. So does that help, Bonnie, with some of the history with the ad hoc, that kind of thing?
Well, I think what we should do at this point, we can have this discussion for 3 hours and longer, and we're still not going to have an answer. I think the best answer is what we've all stated from Vince, yourself, and myself. I really think that we really want to see the solid numbers. If we can do this in 2 weeks, bring it back to Public Works as far as what the numbers are. Administration has got to start working on this. We can sit there and have meetings after meetings and throw numbers and things like that, but you have to start moving on something. We have to know exactly what we're going to do. Are we going to just, are we going to become complacent and stay at Trade and Transit 1 and 2, or are we going to look for another home? Are we going to go back to City Hall? Let's do the hard numbers first at City Hall. Let's do that first. Let's bring that to us. We all know what our numbers are for Trade and Transit 1 and 2. And to me, I think that would be the best decision at this point, to bring those numbers in 2 weeks to Public Works.
Bonnie, this is Joe Girardi. I would think that we need more than 2 weeks. I think 4 weeks would be a little bit better so we can get some good numbers to you. But I keep hearing the word hard numbers, and the only way I could ever give you hard numbers is if we're building this thing from the ground up, and then basically you're okay. You get into a building like this, we can give you numbers, but let's say they give us $500,000 to replace the roof. Well, once they take the slate off, they find out half the flooring up there, the sheeting's bad. Then they're going to have to replace it. Once they do that, they may find some joist members that are broken. So again, when we say hard numbers, they're not going to be hard numbers. They never will on an existing building. We can give you an idea what it's going to be, but I will almost guarantee you it's going to be a lot more than what we tell you. That's just my professional doing it for the last 30 some years.
They're called cost estimates for a reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just to make sure everybody's aware of that, because I hate to see us come through with a number and find out we got to come through with an ad for another $100,000 because they found this damage when they didn't give us the code originally. Just so we're all on the same page.
And Joe, I know over the years, long before any of us, me or any council people that are there, the pipes and things in the walls, I know, like right. Keith Seagraves, for example, has shown they cut out like a 2-foot piece of piping. I mean, that's another factor to take into consideration, right, Joe? I mean, we're not going to tear all the walls apart right now to get a cost estimate on that, but some of the stuff behind the walls that I've seen from where it's opened up is alarming.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to find once you open that wall up, you may have piping that's going to be wrapped in asbestos, because that's how they used to heat the pipe in the old days. They used to wrap it in asbestos in a wall. We open it up, now it's solid full of water. We got to remove it. We can't do it. We got to bring a special team in to do it. So there are going to be some things in there that may be added down the road that I'd hate to see a council come back and say, you only told us it was 6. Now all of a sudden it's 8. You know what I mean? Those kind of things that existing construction happen. Can't do much about it.
I think
nonetheless, we've been working.
I think we all understand that. I really do think. I think where I'm coming from is, I want the answer. Are we going to stay in Trade and Transit 2? Or are we going to look for another home? I think
Well,
that's what we want to know.
And we'll get,
You know?
we'll get the hard numbers, as hard numbers as we can get. It's,
Yep.
you know, the cost estimates, and then we'll go from
And
there.
then go from there. Let's work on that. And you said, Joe, 4 weeks? So let's
Well,
do that.
I'm
in
saying
4
that. I
weeks.
know John, Adam, I mean, you know, we're all going to be working on this together. I know someone to say 2 weeks. 4 weeks sound better for me.
4 weeks.
John?
Whatever it takes.
Okay. I just
Okay.
think just a little bit more time because, you know, we are going to start getting busy here. We have other odd things we have to do. And I think 4 weeks is a lot better than 2.
I just don't
Gotcha.
see, no, I don't see the point. Whether it's 6 million, 10 million, 15 million, we don't have that. So we can go after grants till we blue in the face, but we're never going to catch up. So
John, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. We have to make it, okay, so the public and taxpayers know exactly how much it was cost to fix up City Hall. And we put that in that line item, okay? Then
Yeah.
we look at the next statement. Are we going to stay in trade and transit 1 and 2? Or are we going to look for a place that's conducive for all of city government? You know, we have to make these choices, and we can't make those choices intelligently to give to the taxpayers exactly where we're going. And I think that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to know those amounts. You know, you're throwing around 6, 10, $20 million. And I know, you know, we can all assume that, okay? But people want to see it in writing. They really do. Yes, Randy.
Yeah, I think the way you've segregated that there, Bonnie, is good. That makes sense. We look at the figures, we make the first decision, and then we can talk about trade and transit 1 and 2, or if there's some better alternative out there. Because otherwise, I mean, my fear is we're going to be here a year later and still talking about this, because there's a tendency, I think, and this isn't to denigrate anybody's approach to it, but we can miss the forest for the trees. You know, there's a lot of trees out there and we can focus on them, but we need to see the big picture about that. And it takes in more than just the dollars and cents. I mean, we have to think about what kind of facility do we need to meet the demands of the future? And city government has changed drastically, even in the 12 years that I've been on it, and over the last 2 decades for certain. There's a different need, there's a different delivery. Technology is a huge part of the picture now to efficiently run a city government and provide the services on a timely and cost-efficient basis. So, you know, that's another thing we need to think about. But I like your idea, Bonnie, of segregating it into 2 steps there.
Exactly. Let's go on to the next discussion, okay? And the next discussion is on the Police and Transportation Museum. I don't even know where to start with that one.
Bonnie, one second. Adam had something to add, if you wouldn't mind, on the last subject before you go ahead, if you wouldn't mind.
So
Okay.
I know we're trying for this 4-week deadline. You know, that's gonna be virtually impossible because we have to get a resolution in front of council to approve the engineering firm, to assess City Hall, to give us the numbers. We are in the process of holding conversation with a firm that we'd like to use. But, you know, we're 2 weeks till we get it on the agenda. 2 weeks, I just don't believe is gonna be enough time for them to give us the numbers that you're looking for. I mean, unless council wants to say, just get it done. I mean, there's no other option. And I don't think that's
Adam, I'm pushing this because, like I said in the very beginning, it's been over a year and nothing has been done. Let's not sit on this any longer. You know, we cannot just, you know, have these meetings and just use words. We've got to start taking action. And that's why I don't want to see this. And that's why I'm pushing.
I don't disagree with that. I'm saying within 2 weeks, we'll have a resolution in front of council to approve. And I'm saying this for John Sander, and I shouldn't be, but in 2 weeks, we'll have a resolution in front of council to approve the engineering firm to evaluate City Hall. And then it'll be, you know, the timeline to bring it back to the committee for conversation will definitely be based upon what that firm tells us they need to, put all these
Okay.
numbers together. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Get that to us then. Okay,
All right, thank you.
okay. I don't know, like I said, I don't know where to start with the discussion on Police and Transportation Museum. Chief Snyder, you're there. How is it working out in the museum?
So, yep, actually, it's working out relatively good right now, considering the situation that we're in. We're able to provide a service. We're in a place. We're still catching up on some things, trying to get them situated, such things like the 10 printer and getting all that running and going and back up. But as for to provide a service from a patrol stance, it's been pretty effective, and our officers been doing a great job. They're real resilient in dealing with the circumstances. So I'm actually getting feedback from the officers firsthand, and actually like it. They like where they're at right now. So I think we could only grow from there.
Does anybody have any statements or questions for this? I see none. Mark, you did do a survey of the museum,
I did.
and how?
Oh, it was good. It was under construction when I walked in the door, and I was approached by the contractor, the foreman who's running the crew over there, and they were very curious and open to discussion about how to do accessibility right. They were way ahead of me as far as knowing a lot of the stuff, which was very cool and encouraging. So I was pretty confident when I got done there that the construction that was happening was going to be done right. There was just a couple of little tweaks in the restrooms, and we talked about it while I was there. It may be done already. And so I was very positive after that visit. The train is another story. The train is visitable to the train observation deck, and everybody can look in the windows, and that's great. And as long as we don't have people going through the train, we're cool. But to make that train accessible is going to be an issue. So we would talk about alternate ways of providing that experience to people. But that's something we can adjust in a program. The building's looking good.
Okay. Chief Snyder, I take it we're using this really still. We know this is just temporary because of the deed. So I guess we're going to be looking for another place. And again, let's not keep this on the back burner. Actually,
I haven't, ma'am. I've been digging and doing some things and coming up with some ideas and some contingency plans, and have a couple. As I do have reached out to Gannett Fleming, who has some space utilization drawings that I'm just going to look for approval to get released for the cost of that. Okay, fantastic. Gentlemen, I want to thank you all for the great discussions. Mark, thank you very much for everything you've done and on all the information. I'm sure we'll still be using and talking to you.
Thank you.
I'd like to go to the top of the agenda right now. Resolution authorizing Second Amendment to Master Services Agreement between City and Wood. John Sanders, you are up.
Yes, thank you, everybody. What this is a master service agreement you previously had twice with Wood Engineering. This is just simply defining terms and conditions for a contract for future contracts with the City of Williamsport and Wood Engineering. There's 3 future contracts. I was talking to Wood today, coming to us hopefully this month still. 2 for levee work, 1 for the worst cross pipes in the city over in Newberry, 1 for 3 pump station electrical full upgrades, and another for Graphius Run initial design phase. Anyway, so this master service agreement was reviewed by Austin White, and it's basically 15 pages of legal jargon that define terms and conditions for the contract between future contracts. It's just an extension of the first amendment we did to this MSA back in 2018. I'm here for any questions.
Randy, Vince, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I talked to John earlier by phone on the amendment, and essentially it's just adjusting their 3% increase that they're projecting. And I mean, realistically, there aren't many firms that do what Wood does and specialize in levies and these kinds of things. And we're so far into the process now that, we're not going to change horses in the middle of this stream. So this is just a minor item along the way.
Vince, do you have any questions? John, the only thing that I would ask is eventually down the line, if you could do a spreadsheet on what the cost factors we've had so far in engineering cost from the very beginning. I know that's going to be a chore, but I think we would like to know. I would like to know. I've been asking for this for a long time, and I know you're very good at this, okay? Because we have spent a fortune on engineering costs. We really have.
Yeah.
And studies. And I would really like to know what that is.
We're not doing a study this go around. This is just so yeah, I know, I know, yeah, I'm aware that you're aware that there's a study. This is just contract paperwork, but going forward, we are going to have 2 legitimate contracts that are going to get the levy fixed. As of right now, I have contracted placing riprap along the levy. It's probably I don't know when last time any levy work was done, but right now I got the contractor that couldn't get in the creek all year is doing that work right now. Trust me, this work will get done as long as council approves the rescue plan expenditures for the cross pipes and the pump station upgrades. This work will get done.
Okay. Okay. I need a motion to pass this on.
I make a
Somebody-
motion to pass this on to city council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The second item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the City of Williamsport Public Works Department to amend a street line painting agreement with Mid-Atlantic Marking Company, Inc. Scott Livermore, you are up.
Yeah, so what you have before you is a resolution to authorize the Public Works to amend the street line painting. So what happened, there was a resolution that was put out September 21, number 9185 to Mid-Atlantic to do our line painting throughout the streets of Williamsport. That number, the invoice was for $19,665.44. The resolution that was put in front of everybody, the budget they put out for $13,437.03. There was some additional lines that need to be painted throughout the city, which is roughly 50,229 lineal foot extra that had to be done, which end up being $6,228.41 over budget. I wanted to, so obviously we was going to pay the original money out of the general fund, and I was going to take the extra through liquid fuels due to the fact that I could do that because it's on the streets. This will, the amount of lines that was painted will stay, going forward throughout the years that we're going to continue to do. Now there was a 21% or 21 cent increase over last year's numbers. It was $1.03 a lineal foot. Now it's $1.24. So that helped for the increase too. So I got to get the extra paid to Mid-Atlantic.
Okay, any questions, Randy, Vince?
I don't.
Vince, no questions. I don't have any questions
No
either. The necessary thing that we need is the line painting, and we
Yeah.
this comes through us every year. I need a motion to pass this on.
I'll make a motion. We pass the body of council with a positive recommendation. Oh, I'm sorry.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Last thing on the agenda is any related items. Does anybody from the administration have anything to add? Any council people, do you have anything? Yes, Randy.
The only thing I wanted to say was I heard from citizens and saw on Facebook that people were very complimentary of the job that our Public Works Department did cleaning the snow out, and how quickly they got on it and efficiently they did it, and the streets got cleared and people were very happy. So kudos to Mr. Livermore and the crew. Keep it up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.